And the wily Warren has slipped into supply somehow, I think. Let me check my supply rolls. You have to deal with it so much. So the supply line, well, let me check port hexes. Port hex adjacent to a Union supply line. The base is not occupied by a Confederate leader. No issue about possible zones of control or any such. So I can trace to this, or I can trace supply from this. I can trace through Breckenridge. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Avoiding this. 9. I don't think I moved anything that matters. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. What this means is I think all of the Union units are in supply. And I can't move anything because Burnside still needs to draw off that one. But yeah, and the reason is that the reason I found this was that Wilson couldn't trace this way, but he could trace this way, same as Sheridan. So yeah, the Union has gotten through without paying a penalty, actually. Which, how good is that? How bad is it? I don't know. There was no random event. Of course, that could have done something. Can't move any of my depots. Nothing to embark. Railway destruction. Nobody's in place for it. So we're at reinforcements and attachment. And I caught myself in an error that I know I've done before, but I'm stopping right now. I was going to reinforce Sheridan, who's disorganized, and I bothered to look at the leader enhancement rolls. You can only do it with units that are in their organized side, which is the way that out of supply units can't get reinforcements. But the fact that I've been marching too hard, etc., means reinforcements can't reach me either. Again, this is a weird pulsing thing on that third action cycle. You have to be now wait a minute, maybe I'm missing something in supply here, because vaguely I remember something about supply flipping you. Yep, you automatically organize at this point. So you can march hard on the third action phase. There's so much weirdness because of the action phase choices, and I'm really hoping that this irons out in the Great Campaign series. I like the terrain and the situation in this one, but I do not like the differences there. So yeah, so lots of people became organized during the supply phase. Oops. Screwy, because it means, you know, some of my considerations like, hey, early marched here, that was a hard call because he was disorganized and I would have liked to reorganize. Well, now he automatically reorganizes. God. Yeah. Okay, so we attached Burnside together. No one else is in that position. All my worry about having those organized correctly didn't end up as an issue either. Supply is before begin railroad destruction, so if I could have attached them, I would have had enough there. Reinforcements is after though, so we're not going to get to do that early. However, Warren could do it. Yeah, what the hell? We can get Burnside moving down and have another force in play. Yeah. Let's put that there. All right. And reinforcements went. I think Warren got one for the Union. Yeah, Warren got one for the Union. That's fine. You can do that. Sheridan got one. I made the difficult, and I gave one to Smith. The difficult choice for the Confederates was they only had one, whether to give it to Stuart or Colquitt. Or maybe over here. You know, he might be able to use it. He's the only one defending this line, and it may be necessary, but he's facing 2 core. I don't see how that can help. Down here, I'm not going to have enough strength to be able to take Hinks out before he does his damage. So it kind of comes down to, gosh, I've got to pull, I think, the entire army of Northern Virginia back this way and hope to screw with people like Smith and G-Man down here, Gilmore, and Hinks, and then defend that area. And we can just give up Richmond. It doesn't matter. Yeah, this goes only to Manchester. I think these, yeah. So Petersburg and Manchester are the important areas. I can give up Richmond. Honestly, all this effort that I'm putting into trying to keep the Army of the Potomac from moving, absolutely unimportant at this point. The only important thing, I think, is really to prevent these 2 rail lines from falling. Because I don't know. I mean, it may just be too damn late. There may be enough points elsewhere that it doesn't make a difference. Let's see. I don't know where the hell these things are. That's part of the problem. So yeah, I don't know. You know, but those are a lot of points. And that 26 points is probably the best thing that I can possibly prevent. The problem with it, well, I mean, it feels like I've spent the whole game trying to prevent the Potomac from doing something, and I could keep preventing them from crossing, but it ain't enough because I have to defend my supply lines. They're worth more now. Do I have enough time to? Yeah, you know, these aren't being activated this turn, so I can fall back, try to defend maybe back here somewhere and hope for the best. Because everything on this side of the river, on this side of the James, is really a lot less important, and I don't have enough force to prevent the Potomac from crossing here and to deal with this. So we'll deal with the threat that could win the game for the Union if we can. Anyway, the choice with Stuart versus Colquitt. Well, Colquitt could be a 4-strength point unit, which exerts certain advantages, right? It, I think, again, so much is little tiny rules like this. It feels almost like, you know, a point-to-point game in terms of the level of pickiness of the rolls. So when you have zones of control, which I find this rule book harder to deal with memory-wise. It may be all the pictures. I don't know why. It seems it's really good reading. It's really hard as a reference for me. I'm just not remembering where things are. It all seems the same. I'm always flipping through it. Things aren't in the order I expect them to. Now, it doesn't help that key issues like supply are written as part of the advanced game because all the basic game rules are single rules. Yeah, it's a 4-point strength point that gives you the primary zone of control. The problem is, though, Stuart is Cav, and Cav is really, really effective, and I want to make sure to get my 1 Cav a turn if I can, but also in order to maybe be able to prevent Sheridan from doing stuff, a Cav force that's almost equivalent to his can pretty much bounce him at times. That's my thinking. Anyway, we've run into kind of a mess of mistakes that I've made here that are not getting me where I need to. But big chunk of points there is starting to be generated. I could try to disrupt that, you know, but I have got to try to disrupt destruction back in this area. So the errors that I've made, both tactic game, both within, you know, the strategic view of the game, and also the rules errors to a somewhat lesser extent. Pinpoint. One of the things that this game is actually so good about, it actually epitomizes them. This is a game about changing perceptions of what your goals are, and having to turn and defend something else and run to another line or whatever. And that's really what's going to happen here. Now, this may be a little artificial, largely because the Confederates really were not defending what they should have been as well as they should have been, but their goals have changed, and now they have to do what they can. And yeah, we'll see what we can get out of it still. We're able to get a couple of quick initiatives, and a couple things they want to take care of before the Union operates is to move some of their forces that were out of position into a better position. Now, I got a high roll with Hill, so I stormed him into Richmond. He's going to operate back here. Anderson, on the other hand, further back, out of the way, didn't get as good a roll. He's put himself in front of this bridge. I'm still thinking about defending the bridge line here. Trying to hold the Army of the Potomac off. If I can get forces that can disrupt Smith and Mr. G, should be very helpful. I do have to worry about Hinks. I have no idea what I'm going to do about him. Another major error on the Confederates' part. I didn't notice. Hey, there's nice big bridges all along here. No bridge here because it's just a creek. Doesn't need one. Sedgwick slipped by. Uh-oh. That may mean that any attempt to defend this bridge line is pointless. And I'll have to fall back further. Early, Longstreet, etc. have to, looks like, get out of there. How big a rush are they to get out of there? I don't know yet. Right now the Confederates have the initiative, but they may force a Union move. Just because the Union can't place itself behind the Confederates and do much about it without the time to fortify, at least entrench, to indicate that there's static position there and they're preventing, Confederate supply from getting back there. Also forgetting about the automatic victory. I can't let them have Richmond. Will they be able to smash their way through those garrisons? Yeah, if I don't have forces in the way. Now, Early and Longstreet, they may be enough to prevent that. The Confederates are going to allow the Union to go next on this operation. The Union has problems. I've got, I forgot I have Warren back here. I was wondering, what happened to my 5th Corps? I can't find it anywhere. Yeah, it's hiding under one of those damn yellow markers. Forts, breastworks are also like that. It's sometimes hard to tell whose stuff is whose. It would have been kind of nice to provide color-coded pieces, kind of like Vietnam does for these pieces. I'm not sure who the Union can move. I've moved Hinks over there. I got the choice of Smith or Gilmore. Try to do something over here. If I can take Manchester, game over. If I can sit there and supply, etc. And focusing, on this, hey, I can wreck the railroads, but that's enough to get victory points for it. But there are other ways to win if the Confederates are making things too tough to get the victory points for the railways. So holding off the Union from Richmond seems important too, which is not surprising, but somehow I got myself diluted again from what the goal was. Of course, there just ain't enough to defend everything. I think we've wound down to the end of this one. Confederates fortifying here after Smith moved into position, where Smith and Gilmore could have maybe done a combined attack on it that would have gotten it decent odds. Stuart would have been another option. Hard to knock out of where he was. He's in an annoying position. Letting those 2 Confederate units exist, it makes it iffy as to whether or not I can complete the railroad destructions without my supply getting screwed up or something bad happening. So I've got to be careful with that. We got Fitz Lee moving here to prevent Manchester from falling to Gilmore, which is where he moved to in order to threaten that. He got a damn 1 on his movement roll. This will be his easiest attack vector, so that seems appealing. Sheridan went and attacked Breckinridge back here. Now, Normally you don't see Cav attacking infantry, especially in the woods where they have a bonus, and the General Lee bonus was put in too, but he had like 4-to-1 odds. It didn't go well though. I think he had a +1 total, but anyway. I don't think anybody else is willing to operate. The Confederates, neither side's actually passed, but the Confederates have this. The Union has this. I really can't risk it. If I leave that hex, the Confederates could move up there on a jumped move or something and cause me some real problems. So I feel like I kind of have to remain holding something there because I don't really have a line back here. I'm just messing around, but the Confederates don't have a line either. So we're both kind of in supply, but neither one is very secure in their holding there. Now, if this got cut, all kinds of bad things happen because that is my only supply source back here at the Bermuda 100. I don't think there's much that's immobile. This guy stayed immobile mainly because if I leave there, I make maybe the job a little too easy on Hinks. Greg running around burning things, Cowatt's burning things, whatever. Early on the second action cycle, we've got both players kind of playing chicken, passing the initiative to the other side continuously. Gilmore got screened by Fitz-Lee. Anderson here moving across, got screened by Sheridan, cost him some movement, make it hard to get to where he's going. Some of these rails, depots, whatever, stations are being burned. But other than that, not a lot. And when I say it's playing chicken is, if the Union got like 2 actions in a row, they could slide up into place next to Colquitt and then make an attack on Colquitt with some advantage. And of course, Lee could come in and everything. And this is not the key. It's in a little deeper. That's what I can't lose. But there aren't that many turns. So if the siege is, starting to go underway in earnest, it's kind of a problem. Another possible problem is if the Union can get this garrison out of there, no matter what, the cannons protecting the James are gone because Drury's Bluff's already been taken. And then we can start building bridges across the river. And then the Army of the Potomac can operate over here if it needs to, which I think pretty much would end things. So there's a lot of opportunity for major screw up at this point. We play out the rest of the cycle. Stuart's moved his way in here. That was kind of the last thing that happened. Some diddling around, whatever. Sedgwick launched an attack that was ineffective. It's not surprising. If he could have launched it from here, it would have been much more positive, but facing this fort was not good, even with support from Hancock. He might have been able to swing around and hit Hill. He didn't, though. Probably wouldn't have made much difference, except he would have more of a focus with 2 units in one place, basically. The dangerous thing is, Ewell and Early have run down here and are threatening Bermuda 100. And I don't know what the Union can do about that. This could be very, very bad. On the bright side, though, for the Union, Hinks could be getting supplies from here next turn. So taking Bermuda 100 out, it's bad for Gilmore and Smith, and they're going to have to probably do something about it. But alternatively, Early and Ewell could come down here and screw up with Hinks too. As a full corps, they're about twice the size of Hinks's division. They've got 8 strength points. Hinks has 4. Conceivably, I could attack a 2-to-1, but it's better to attack with support and keep the flexibility of multiple units, I think. It's always kind of a thing, but it means that Hinks probably isn't in a great position to be able to wreck that railroad. We'll see how it plays out. The line here, again, it's holding for how long? Burnside's coming down. We're going to have Warren available pretty soon, so there's definitely some question in play. Anyway, it's time to clean up and move to the third action cycle. Initiative, they force the Confederates to go in this third action cycle. And I fire Ewell off, support of Early, throw Lee in so that I get a +2 bonus. I end up wiping this out easily. Unfortunately, I had a really low movement point. The only one that would have screwed me, a 1. Obviously. So instead of advancing into there, I'm moving down this way because I can't get close enough to this to give support. This is a big deal. If the depot's there, Hinks can do his work, but more importantly, we got problems with Gilmore and Smith there. Now, if Early entrenches, Gilmore and Smith are out of supply, which could cause them some difficulties. So there's a reason to delay making a decision of what I'm doing with Early as of right now. And in fact, well, if he doesn't entrench, it's no good. So if he attacks this and fails, he's not going to cut their supply. Catching myself making these errors. There's a game that really requires a better understanding of the rules than I think I can keep in my head. There's too many special cases. In this case, I'd Cav build a bridge here. They couldn't. It is absolutely inconsequential. It didn't matter whether they built it or not, but they did. So I removed it. But yeah, it's one of the facets is just, and you've seen it. Most of the time, it hasn't been important. Every now and then, it's been, geez, it's not important here. Oops. But did I screw up earlier on this same rule where it was important? In this case, I'm pretty sure I didn't because I haven't used any bridge building to any good effect yet. But there, I don't know, Anyway, trying to figure out what to do with the Union. I'm piddling around like cows, moving down, getting into supply. It's things that have to be done, but they don't really make much difference. I had to check one that seemed a little odd as well, which is, can cavalry entrench? Yeah, they can. They're mainly dragoons here. The thing is, they don't have the engineering capabilities to build over the bridges. But I know at certain points in the war, and this is fairly late, cavalry didn't tend to entrench simply because, that's just not what we do. I got the leader loss procedure where I noticed it. Hancock attacked over here. It didn't go well. He's disordered. He had a +1, but sometimes it's not good enough. Larger forces attacking smaller entrenched forces, bad thing, basically. I mean, attacking entrenched forces is just bad. But even smaller ones where you have good odds, you're going to face heavier casualties, possibly. Hey, Cold Harbor. So, what we have to do, Hancock's the only corps leader here. So on a 1 or a 2, he's going to be dead. And we get a new random leader. And that's the case. Yay. So I remove Hancock from the game. And I get something random here. Oops. I get one of these Army of the Potomac leaders in his place. And this kind of sucks because, no little picture. One thing that I don't like about this game is, and I'm kind of glad I caught one finally, leader replacement rules. When a corps leader dies, a divisional commander doesn't become the new corps leader. I kind of wish that would happen, but it means that you don't have to make guesstimates of how good these divisional commanders would be in this campaign if promoted, when we have little information that how well these guys would go. So I get a pretty crappy one. He's a 2-value leader, and he is fatigued, same status. So that sucks. This line is really becoming tough to crack. You should be swerving around, but here I was trying to do that basically. I mean, I took my odds here with basically an even shot. That didn't work, fine, whatever. But here, I felt like I had a fairly good shot. If I could crack it, maybe I could open it up so that I can bridge the James near Drury's Bluff. Louise! Okay, and you can see the casualty. Grant's butcher bill is going way up here. The Confederates haven't lost much at all, but because the Union's fighting really in some of the worst terrain now, right at in the entrenchments around Richmond, they're taking serious casualties for it. And let's see what else has happened. Gilmore and Smith. Gilmore punched a hole in the Manchester area. If he can capture that, that's great. The problem is he's going to be out of supply, and that's going to cause him some problems. Stuart's not running away from him. He's defending a victory, an auto victory space. So I think Early is going to entrench here just to prevent the supplies from getting up there. The problem with that is Gilmore, if he can get supply, which isn't going to be the case, would have been able to destroy the Richmond and Danfield, but it's going to be really hard to prevent Hincks from wrecking the Weldon. So even if the Union's suffering some pretty big disasters here, they may be able to pull out a victory, because that's the big point one. But the Richmond and Danfield's important too. I've got to, obviously, if I'm not going to be able to get that, I'm going to have to grab other rails that I can reach from my supplies, say back here. Although these work just as well. So the only danger with those was that the whole base at Bermuda 100 could have been destroyed this turn. That didn't happen. It's not going to happen. Early's not going to make that attack. It's too risky. He can get effectively the same result by just entrenching. And that's one of the things of the game. What can you do without resorting to actual combat? Can maneuvering cause someone to leave the line? Can maneuvering or entrenching cut the supply? Don't take the risks on combat if you've got a more assured way of doing the same thing. And that's a good lesson for, a lot of games, really. But this one really drives it home in a very, very, very useful way. And it may be part of why I'm not capable of handling it very well is, I'm not an operational thinker, and I'm kind of bloody-minded when it comes to the offense, at least. Defense, I don't know. Let's throw a big wall of nasty stuff in front of them because they're just going to attack us, right? Yeah. This game doesn't, my mindset does not work as well with these games that are more subtle in terms of, how you handle things. And it's probably, there's a lot of reasons for it. And one of the big ones is, I've not been big into the operational games. And the lessons from sort of the simpler operational games don't have to be learned if you're playing against equally incompetent people, right? Like myself. But in something like this, it's very obvious that there are ways of getting around just bludgeoning your way through. And the same thing with the Zucker Napoleonics operational games and the Red Sash stuff. And, I like what they show. I just feel kind of incompetent facing them. Closing down the turn, Ransom launches an attack with Stuart's aid here, drives Gilmore out, another casualty on the chart. And I think we're about done. The Union has nothing left to move. The Confederates, while they have more pieces they could move, they really to no effect. They're just things within here. I'll make sure that I don't have anything I want to shift around. I brought Anderson down into the city center so that in case the first line goes, there's someone there at that second line after a retreat. It's unlikely that the Union will breach that easily, but I want to make sure. And this Ransom move is big because it got Gilmore off the rail line. He's not going to be in supply anyway, but also got him away from Manchester. And there's sort of a potential for these guys to aid Ewell and Early somehow. Maybe sitting in the breastworks well, you will inearly go elsewhere. Well, you won't be able to sit in the breastworks, but it doesn't really matter because it's only at the end of every 3 cycles that you have to be, that supply is counted, right? For most things. There are some exceptions. Okay. So, no, there are not. I was thinking recovery, no. Entrenchment, bridges, no. Those are all, yeah. The only things that supply matters for happen on the turn cycle, so every 3 of those action cycles. And in terms of these things, well, I guess the biggest things, this is gonna come back into play, and we'll be able to draw Hinks's supply from down there at least, or from here, it doesn't make a difference. But more importantly, this railroad destruction will be completed. But I've got the end of cycle flip-ups, and otherwise we're done with this turn. Oh, for turn 7, following our little thing here, random events, Union got a bridging train. This allows them to bridge one of the navigable major river hexes. But they're still restricted not within 5 of this, which basically means they can't cross here and they can't cross here. There are places on the James up here already to cross, so it's not that big a deal for this one. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this would be the earliest they could cross, I think. Yeah, it could give some advantage, but probably not. Where you really, really need to do it, well, wow, the James is weird. It becomes unnavigable for part of, or I'm sorry, it becomes bridgeable for part of the distance, and then unbridgeable again. And obviously, the permanent bridges can exist, you know, where it's unbridgeable. That's possible. I don't know if there's any examples of it. It's kind of hard to see. There might be in there, but because it would be physically possible to build, like, you know, a permanent bridge over a place where you couldn't build normal pontoon bridges. The Union depots, we had some mix-up, or some changes here. Sedgwick, 6th and 2nd Corps have moved down here. 9th Corps has moved over here. That keeps almost everything in supply except these guys. They're cut off from the Bermuda 100. They don't have a plausible supply route at this point. So we look to see how far their supply is. They're not going to be in primary supply. I counted that at 15. Let's see if they're in secondary. They should be. 15 got them to in here, from coming from here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Yeah, we're going to be in that 16 to 29 secondary supply. So everybody's going to be disorganized, and they have to look at the attrition table. Now, the one reason that you have to keep units that were disorganized still disorganized at the end of the 3rd action cycle is if they were out of supply. And I flipped some of my units that, you know, shouldn't have been organized at that point. But let's look at these guys. Let's look at counts first. We've got a few rolls to make here. He's currently organized, which is -1, and he's small, so he's got -2 there on secondary. He's probably not going to, well, he might lose strength. Oh, he loses a strength point. And I mark that on there and on here. And you can see being out of supply is not a good thing in this game. There's a reason that I've been protecting them so heavily. This guy's not small, but he's organized, so he's only got a -1. 2, he loses 1. He's down to a 4. At least they're not fatigued as well. And now he doesn't even have the -1 for his and he only loses 1 as well. So he'll be going down to a 4. So these have dropped down to divisional size. Oh, and I forgot to mark 2 more losses here. And remember, those are victory points. The Confederates are at 4.5 victory points there. So the net is like 9.5 in favor of the Confederates. That's a big swing if the automatic victory is not going to come into play, and it doesn't look like it's likely. And Richmond and Danville aren't coming into play. The Union's got some serious problems here. On the other hand, we do have 3 more turns to try to break through. Who knows what happens there, right? What do we have left? Begin railroad destruction? Yeah, we're going to try to wreck the railroad down there. He is in supply. I don't think... We could start wrecking the York. We will be in supply, so we're like that. Again, I got to get all of these correct. The York's worth 1 victory point. Spending a whole turn for 1 victory point doesn't sound worthwhile. Even though I've now got a leadership value of 2, I feel like that unit's probably worth more doing other things. And I'm not on any of the others. Really, it's Hinks who wants to wreck the rails down here. Those are the important ones for me to get other than this one. So we'll leave that alone. I think I can get a victory point or better threaten the situation around Richmond without that. So I'm not going to do that. There's no embarkation because I'm not on any ports. You really kind of have to plan to get to a port, right? And here it looked like, hey, we're beginning the siege of Richmond. And I don't really see too much value to the port if I could take this. If I get the river crossing, I'm in good shape. Without the river crossing, well, you know, I can build a river crossing here and funnel troops in. I just don't have supply back there. The bridge here would allow me to get supply coming, assuming the Longstreet's not a problem. And then reinforcements and attachments. Let's see what our reinforcement rolls are. So far, they've been, I don't know, mixed. We've had a couple of bad turns for both sides, really, but that hurts the Confederates more, I think. This time, it's 2-1. The Union gets 2, Confederates get 1. Not sure what I'm doing with it. One of them little rules I missed, not missed, but forgot about temporarily. There are limitations on the total number of cavalry each side could have. Both sides are 1 over that limit. I'm going to just leave it as it is. I'm not taking additional reinforcements in cavalry, though. It's just hard to keep track of all this crap. It really is. I'm not sure what would help me. You know, I mean, obviously, the more you play the game, the more used to it you are, the more these things stick to you. But the way I play games, remembering all these little things is really rough. I almost feel like, in addition to the regular player aid, I need a cheat sheet of important things that are really easy to forget. I mean, it's not like I don't make mistakes in everything. It's just, it really hurts me in this one because I've played this a few times. I should remember most of it, but then again, with the American Civil War, which I played tons of times, I never remember how to deal with the naval aspects of that game. The river, and the invasions and stuff like that. Wow, and the river blockages I get down pretty well. It's the invasions. It's not so much that I don't remember how to use them, because when I want to use them, I look them up, but then I forget to use them. Oh, geez. Where are we? Yeah, I'm still looking at the reinforcements and trying to figure out what to do with the Union. Okay, so for the Union, I put them in the, I don't know, whatever that is, Second Corps, whoever that is now. The unknown leader of not particular quality. And then for the Confederates, I gave it over here to Ransom because he did such a good job. Now, mainly because I think I'm going to need Anderson and Ransom to defend the line up here, because I see I've got Warren and Burnside in position to threaten that. Granted, Burnside especially doesn't have a lot of troops, but I'm really worried about, this is one of the, right here, one of the hexes that I cannot lose. I can't lose it to in-supply forces. I'm not really sure the Union can get that in supply very easily, but I'm not positive they can't. Let's check the hex route. Let's say this just was open. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Yeah, they could get it in supply from the Bermuda 100 down there. So that's no good. And this breastwork doesn't prevent this from working. It just prevents it from escaping. Unfortunately, I definitely have some problems here, which is that I was planning on using Ransom to march down there. I'm not sure he can do that. I may have to rely on Stuart to do that. As long as these guys don't have supply, they're not a threat to Manchester. They can blow away the garrisons, but that doesn't make much difference. So I've got a few things I got to worry about. I can't let the Union take this. I obviously can't let them take Richmond. And I have to keep this breastwork in place, and I probably should try to knock that railroad destruction out of the way. Now, Ewell can go down and try to do that, but his chances are not good on his own. If I send Early with him, things become a lot more likely, but then I have to commit one of these forces to try to blockade that. And then, of course, there's the problem that Smith and Gilmore might be able to blow their way back through and return back to the Bermuda 100. But, or at least the fortifications outside that little place where the army of the James got itself stuck. Because I think I'm going to need both of these guys to defend this line. Now, I could use just one of them in Richmond, but then, wow, I'm really taking a chance. Because if too much surrounds this, it's going to be quite possible to bust my way through in the course of 3 full turns. So I think I need a little bit more breathing space. I don't know. I'm thinking might even come out here, but you know, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. Those vast entrenchments, because the retreats are 2 hexes or 4 hexes. They're never 1 hex. So you're not going to come from here to here and still be in kind of a defensive position. You're going to... The advantage, though, from here is you'll be back in Richmond, and then the Union has to bust through these. They get through them. They're not going to get to make the attacks directly on Richmond, but that's okay. But they might be able to do a follow-up if I'm placed here. So, maybe they're useful. Takes a lot more... you have to spread out more, and then you become more vulnerable, and yeah. Right then. I did my attachment to Hill-absorbed Breckinridge, I think. And I guess we're ready to start another action cycle here. And it looks like the game is, you know, kind of more in the balance than it felt like it was a little while earlier. Just, I don't know. It's really tough to hold everything as the Confederates. So I've gotten several initiatives in a row, and we've seen further entrenchment here to fort status. Ewell can't really dislodge that, but he could place himself here, and by the end of the full cycle of turns, be established in his own entrenchment there. And that would be sufficient to block Union supply from being able to make it back here, which is enough to prevent the railroad destruction from happening. If I could put it here, That wouldn't do me much good comparatively because Greg's sitting there. So I can't actually protect this little line anywhere near as easily. So that one probably would end up falling at some point or another. If this gets dislodged, all bets are off though, right? So the Confederates are kind of holding off, seeing what happens, and forcing the Union to go. Well, the Union's moved Warren and Burnside up into place to start attacking here. That means I'm going to need to move Ransom and Anderson to cover, but there's a weak spot. My extra strength point of cavalry sitting here under Hampton in a fort. Sedgwick might be able to blow through that. Unfortunately, if he moves here, it's going to be expensive to attack this. And he probably will have the movement points to do it all, right? 1, 5, 6, 7. He needs to roll a 3 or higher for that attack to go off. Conceivably, I could actually move the Army of the Potomac over there and put more of my strength coming in from that direction. Eventually, I have to worry about supplies, but with those cav and everything, maybe I can protect them, right? I mean, if I throw everything on this side, supplies over this become really important, and I may have to swing the 2nd and 6th back up there. Right now, this seemed like a shorter route, so, you know. It doesn't really make a difference during the course of the turn, except for the railway destruction. If the supplies are cut during railway destruction, you don't succeed. So, I'm not sure whether the Confederates want to give Sedgwick that chance, or if there's something I can do that would fix it. I can't really think of something I can do, so I think I'm going to let the Union go. I mean, I could throw Stuart up, right, to help cover that. He could at least absorb those forces. Maybe that makes sense. But Stuart's doing something of some value with Gilmore there. If Gilmore and Smith can break their way back free, there's a problem. I don't know. I roll a die. I'm going to let the Union take their shot. Union their shot. They moved 2nd Corps over here and launched an attack on this hex. Didn't have enough movement to go into here. And that did not go well for them. They took another casualty, marked over on the track. But now Sedgwick is looking like he's got more and more force coming in there with 2 shifts in his favor, or two modifiers in his favor from supporting units. I had to cover. So Stuart indeed pushed over in, and that's enough for there, but not enough if Sedgwick, say, got a good move. 1, 2, 6, 7, 8, which would be a 4 or higher. He could get into there. So I feel like I have to cover that space too now. Fortunately for the Confederates, the Union get the next action. Their question was whether to hit Stuart here, where I'd have, let me think, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I'd be at like 1 to 2, which is -1, +1 for these. The leap bonus was already used on the prior attack. It would be a so-so attack, but I've been making so-so attacks and not getting any ground. So Sedgwick went in with a good die roll and did take that hex. And now we're in emergency time. This is a city hex. And this is a city hex. Those two have to be defended. Right now the threat's on here. And to me, this space, it's a modifier. You know, do I need to cover it, or should I just throw Anderson there? Can I give things up over here maybe? My line of forts here is pretty solid. Whatever's there, some cav or something, right? Yeah, Fitzlee's cav. Another one of those, potentially the extra cav point. couldn't move up there. So I think, yeah, I don't think I can afford to give up the modifier space. So I got to be really careful. But the Union's out of actions up here. They've moved everything. So I can give the Union, you know, force them to move next and see what happens. The only real risk for that, though, is someone like Wilson could bust into one of those garrisons. He's got a lot of movement, potentially. So, got to worry about that. There are them kind of chess-like moves going on here. I pull Longstreet out of here, weakening this fort. Doesn't really do anything. This is still strong enough that the Cav probably doesn't want to try to pick it off. But that leaves me Ransom here. I can play with. I could throw him over to join Ewell or something if need be. He's sort of my reserve, right? Entrenched over here further. But now Wilson has slipped around here, and that's going to allow Sheridan to possibly make an attack on this. Now, that's only got a strength of 2. It doesn't get any bonus from the entrenchments. The garrisons are just what they are. So I've got like a 2-to-1 attack. It's +1, but if I can clear that, then I can, if I can find an infantry unit in supply that could get down there or up here, I would be able to bridge the James. And I could actually bridge it here, or I could bridge it back here or something. Either of those would be of some value for getting the Potomac across, but unfortunately the Army of the Potomac shifted its positioning to threaten the center of Richmond a little bit. Our answer to things, got the initiative, is to just keep peeling off smaller forces. So like, I mean, Longstreet left here, but he left a force behind under Pickett. And then Hill dispatched Breckinridge over here to help defend that. Now Sheridan's position is not so good. So you've got this real reactive type thing. Every move has some sort of counter move. How valuable is it? Well, right now the strength here has just gone up to 4, 5, 6, which is more than Sheridan really wants to handle. It's unlikely he's going to be able to break out with a -2. He's going to have to get it, you know, a 4-point swing, basically, on the dice, which doesn't happen. But, of course, Breckinridge can get stronger as he fortifies more heavily, and the fact that the Army of the Potomac slid over this way is definitely creating a problem for the Union, because I've exposed, you know, that flank. Not really sure what to do, but such is the nature of this game. And I think we've come to the end of this action phase. Gregg's going to entrench. Sheridan ran over to Mechanicsville. A couple of points available for him to grab, you know. This might come down to points. I wasn't convinced that he's doing anything terribly useful up here at Riddle's shop or whatever it is. Yes, Pickett's here and can maybe interfere with something. I'm not really sure what he's doing out there. He was covering this. Once the threat came there, it became less certain, but he's sort of a reserve that can pull into Richmond if need be. I could, of course, throw him down to Manchester where, you know, he'll be able to protect that if need be. But I guess the exciting thing that's happening is the Army of the James is moving back, maybe towards Bermuda 100, maybe to cross the James or whatever. No, the Appomattox, in order to get itself back in supply. They're all disordered. Ransom is sort of shadowing them. With the idea of, you know, actually he followed Gilmore and then the others came down with him. But with all of these, I could get like Couts into a space like this maybe, if he gets a good movement roll. and then be able to slip things into the Bermuda Hundred region down there, the little curve in the James that the Army of the James was stuck in before, and get them bottled up there again. I'm not sure. Things this game does that a lot of war games don't succeed in doing very well. The OCS does it. Korea does it. Is it rewards keeping reserves. You know, so like the picket force back here. This isn't right on the line, and as long as it's not fatigued, I can use it to exploit with, or to fill a gap in the line or whatever, assuming that I get the correct, you know, the initiative where I want it. Chip pulls kind of do the same sort of thing, but most tactical games don't manage it. Now, granted, this is operational, but it's got something of a tactical feel at times. There's no question of that, because it's not operational in the sense that, like, I don't know, Stalingrad's not operational. Let's say Korea or some of the OCS games or something. This is a fairly small amount of ground we're moving over, and we're handling individual battles along a line. You know, there's like a fixed line and there's fighting going on in it. And throwing fresh units in is an important facet. It would be kind of a neat thing to see a similar kind of system for World War I, in my opinion, where maybe the initial force is important, but then being able to pulse more units in that are fresh has an effect in different rounds of combat. There are other ways to handle it. Le Grand Guerre does it. Somebody's asking me to do that again. I love the game, but man, monsters eat up so much of my ability to keep up with, you know, the games that I have. And there's just so many things I need to cover. I don't know. All right. I think we take a little break. The Union's gotten a couple of initiatives, and they've forced the Confederates to go. This is pretty standard. Hey, you burn up the other guy's actions. Here's the problem. All right, I moved you all. But now the Confederates have an initiative, and they're actually thinking about going out as well, just to fortify some of their line, because they're kind of worried, especially Longstreet here might end up getting punched. However, he's doubled, you know. I mean, he's 4, 5, 6. It's going to be a 1-to-1 though, so with some support, he might get knocked out of there. If he's tripled, goes to 8. I don't know if that doesn't actually help. So I guess we'll push. We'll let the Union go, because I don't see anything we terribly need to do. And keeping some flexibility could be useful. Potomac's made some assaults. Burnside attacked Anderson. Not at good odds, but forced him to use the Lee bonus, because this is Richmond Center. If that falls, it's going to be really hard to get the Union out of there. And it has to be done, because Potomac's in supply right now. You might be able to cut it, but I don't want to count on that. That comes to the vagaries of initiatives and such not when you start playing that game. Too much to be worrying about when I've got 3 turns, right? And it only takes a couple of action cycles. Warren and Sedgwick, though, both attacked Longstreet, and not effectively. Now, Longstreet doesn't have a lot of forces there. He actually got out of that pretty luckily. Actually, I think Warren failed to attack. He didn't get enough movement points. But anyway, that's not as big a deal if it falls, but it does put more pressure on Anderson then, and that could be a problem. I think action cycle 2's all washed up here. I'm not seeing... I could keep playing out fortification actions for the Confederates, but they're just going to pass. They don't need to do anything. And once they pass, then the Union looks and says, well, you know, I can move Wilson, but it's better off if he fortifies. This needs to recover. You notice I've pulled the Army of the James. It's not in supply yet, but it should be. But Ransom might be able to affect some problems on them. Ewell has moved. He hasn't entrenched yet. Union might have to give up their railroad destruction. Maybe this is the time to do it. I think so. So I think I got to batter my way out of there. I don't think I'm going to be able to wreck the railroad. I'm not seeing any way that I'll be in supply. Oh, wait a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You know what? I will be in supply. Depending on what Ransom does. So I'm going to stand there. Maybe I have to batter my way out next turn, but I'd rather not do anything now. So yeah, everybody's just going to pass, and well, we'll recover what we can. And with that is, Ewell just entrenched. And that means these guys are going to have a harder time busting through if, and it's a big question, but if the Confederates can cut this off. If they can't cut it off, the Weldon goes. If they can, and then Hincks can move up and all kind of force can be put on the Manchester area that's not in play right now. In Petersburg, it doesn't become unimportant because it still controls these two rail lines, which could both be taken in one shot. But it is really questionable what's going to happen here, because we've got Early here, who could strike one of the necessary locations. We got Ransom, who could conceivably come in and attack. It may be pretty unlikely that the Union can keep that supply line open. It's impossible, and I think I screwed up leaving the Union there, but we'll leave things as they lie. So Smith can slip back to here, and that presently opens up the line, but then Ransom entrenches, and it's cut. So the only way to keep it open is to move Gilmore here and keep Smith where he is. So that's what we're going to do. I was going to move Smith, but obviously that's not going to work. So we got our one movement point that we needed, and no more. We also have Kautz, who could jump in and extend the supply line if needed. It's open no matter what. Ransom launched an attack on Smith. That may or may not have been wise. If he attacks here, he could actually have stopped there, but anyway, he was defeated. And the problem there is, even if the Confederates launch an attack here, there's a trace coming up this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And nothing I can do about that. And if I dislodge Gilmore, Kautz can run into the same location. I could split this if it's a corps, but it's not. It's just Early's division. Early can't split his division. So he either activates it or he doesn't. And there's nothing really can be done there. Knocking Smith out of the way doesn't do any good. It was a mistake to attack Smith. Gilmore was where I had to attack, but, you know, like I said, I'm leaving mistakes lie where they lie, because in general, I feel like it's just so easy to make mistakes in this game that it's a part of the game. It really is. You can't look at it and say, oh shit, I had a 2-to-1 here. That would have been so much better. I just feel like these kind of errors, the system almost forces them, at least on players of my caliber. And I think this is where turn 7 ends. The Union did not make attacks from Sedgwick or Burnside. They need to recover their forces. The Army of the Second Corps here, under whomever, made an attack here, ill-advised, bad odds. Lee was thrown into it, and it was like 1-2, so it was at like -2, and it gave kind of the expected result, more damage. That's the thing, out to like even +1, you're not getting successful results. You're not getting those retreats you need. So you need to get significant force to push the Confederates even a space, you know, to get one of those spaces. And if you don't have it, but, you know, you're probably going to take casualties out, you know, with a fair-sized force out here. Now, here, you're starting to cause retreats and casualties to yourself still. So that's not as unacceptable if you have a big force. Nobody's got that big a force, though. Things are pretty spread out compared to what I'm used to in this game. I'm used to people trying to get that 16 strength points or whatever in a space. That's just not happening here. More up here, I guess. I think we're at... oh, Smith didn't even move. What the hell? I mean, he doesn't need to. I don't want him to, because he's protecting the supply line. So that means we get here. After our recovery, we're going to complete the railroad destruction over there on the Weldon. Pity we couldn't do it here. That would have gotten 2 of them. And the Union gets a supply base. I don't know if they care where. So that'll pretty much be it, and then we'll push into what? June 8th. So we're on June 7th now. You know, it may make sense to attack with early, even so. At even odds, I don't know. Just to prevent Cowsitz from recovering. I'm leaving it as it is, but there was, I didn't realize I didn't do early either. But it didn't matter because of this stupid move against Smith. Had I hit Gilmore, not only could I have taken the hex, which would have ended this whole issue, and I couldn't take it with this. But even if I didn't, I could hit again, and then, well, if I drive this off and Cowsitz comes in, Kautz comes in, I could hit again and drive him off, but I don't think that there's any results where you make the enemy retreat and you don't get an advance. So that's kind of moot.